Well, hello there, dear church boys, and welcome to St. Robert's Daygame Pickup Podcast episode 31, coming to you from the large, amazing, and busy
New York City.
I am here with Mr. T. I've been staying at his place in Manhattan for around a week. I've taken a long-ish trip to North America to coach students in Canada and Toronto and in the USA in Chicago and New York City. And we decided to do a podcast episode with Mr. T on day game in New York because there is a lot of info. And the info is very mixed. Many say New York City is very tough to day game in. There are harsh blowouts, girls with strong frames, too busy streets, everyone's serious and not very polite. So we decided why not talk about it. Mr. T lives here and, well, I've been coaching here. So this is some real info on day game in New York City. Mr. T, what's your overall your overall thoughts on day game in this city?
Well, I think day game is good in this city. It's tough, but I originally left San Francisco because I wanted to be in a city that had a lot of people. There's good traffic over here, and you have girls from all over the world. So if you really wanted to get exposure, this is really the city to be. Like, you have your pick.
Whatever is your thing, it's available here. Unless there's actually one thing I haven't seen a lot of, girls in hijabs.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
Like only a few, but because I saw a lot of them in Antwerp, and so I know guys. There are guys that wanna try day gaming them. So yeah, that's one thing you can find here. But other than that, if we look at the hotness of girls in New York City, what are your thoughts?
It's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum. But again, as I said, there's something here for everybody. If you really want to go in the super hot end, or I guess objectively hot end, you can make it. You can do it. You'll find those girls here. You will find the average girls, and you'll find, I believe, lots of sevens.
You will find lots of eights.
Yeah,
lots of eights here.
The girls dress better here anyway. So even if they were somewhat average, their style usually makes up for it.
This is what we spoke about, how New York girls are a little bit like Russian girls. They know how to look good. Even if they are dressed in a simple style, they still know how to make it look amazing. So from hotness, so as I told, I went to Toronto, I went to Chicago, and now I'm in New York City. And pay attention, this podcast is recorded in mid-February, so it has been cold, it has been some days sub-zero Celsius. How much is freezing temperature in Fahrenheit, so that guys
32.
know? So it has been, we have been out when it's freezing temperature outside. Of course, day game is different in summer, but if I have to talk about Toronto, Chicago, and New York, then in terms of hotness in winter, I think New York would be number one, and Chicago and Toronto would be kinda on the same level. But if you look at day gaming in winter, then I believe Chicago and Toronto for day gaming in winter is better than New York. Because in New York there are very few places where you can day game indoors.
Yeah, that's true. So during your coaching, I was kind of shadowing you, and we were out in pretty much 0 degrees or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and it really sucked. But we pushed through, and we really needed places indoors. I think we did the platforms. No, we didn't do the platforms as much.
We did some stops
I did the
in
platforms.
Like students went in, but I think some of them, no, there were some opens and platforms. We did one mall, which we will talk about later. But if we talk about hotness, New York has amazingly hot girls. A lot of model faces with those high cheekbones. I actually, when I arrived here, I was like, so many Russians here, so many cute chicks, and Mr. T says no, they are actually American, and they were American. So I was surprised to see that, but New York is big in modeling, so I think that is partly why the city is so full with really beautiful, tall girls. But again, whatever is your thing, you can find it here because there are so many people on the streets. It's just unbelievable. That was one thing that I had heard before coming here, that streets are very busy. Streets are so busy, it's hard to day game. I was expecting way more people on streets than I saw, to be honest, except when I went to Times Square, not even Times Square, but like 8th Avenue, just disaster. So many people, I would never day game there. But if it comes to the places where I coach my students and where you normally day game, and we'll talk about those places a bit later, traffic was okay. But there were times when it's too busy. There are streets that do get too busy.
Yeah.
And you as a New York day gamer, how do you think, because you know my thoughts on this, but what's your real life experience on day gaming on streets that are really, really busy? Is it worth it, or is it not really worth it?
It is worth it sometimes, and the biggest problem is really not, you will have good traffic. The problem is if you want to do a front stop, it's going to be significantly difficult, and there are many times when I will throw the technique out of the window. Like, I'm not going to do a proper front stop because it's not possible, so I'll just make sure I can at least open the set and then quickly adjust. So yeah, in the really busy places, doing stops or going through the crowd quickly to catch up to a girl you really like can be somewhat difficult.
And that's a thing for day gamers, for new day gamers, for beginners. If a beginner would attempt to do that, massive failure. It would be a massive failure to do anything but the strongest front stop in New York City if a day gamer isn't experienced enough. Even for good day gamers, it's just so much better to do a front stop. But yes, sometimes the streets are so busy you cannot do a proper front stop. So what my thinking was, and I've noticed this in different cities as well, and let's say when I coach in some cities in Europe, everyone knows about Prague, because well, years back Tom said Prague is amazing. It became overgamed very fast, and if you go to Prague, then unless it's really cold, you will probably, like, if you're there for a few days, you'll see some guys in sets, or you'll see some guys looking at you in sets and you know they're day gamers. Or I've had guys come up with me there on the street recognizing me. If you think about cities that are a bit overgamed, then, well, girls are used to being opened on that one street where all the day gamers go. And I always find it funny how all the day gamers are concentrated in the same areas on this one street or on this one corner. What I do is I go to what I call second tier streets. I go to streets that are still very busy and I day game there. But they're way less busy than the main day game street. So let's say we're talking about New York and we're talking about Soho, which is one of the areas we day gamed in a lot. Broadway is the main street in Soho. And like another busy street would be, I think Prince was pretty busy at times, not at all times, but at some point. No, actually not Prince. Spring was very busy at some. Yeah, so let's say Broadway is the main street in Soho, and if it's too busy and you day game there, you're just making life complicated for yourself. And I just say to students, don't make life complicated for yourself. Don't go to those really, really crowded streets or overgame streets. Find smaller streets right next to those overgame streets and daygame there. And I think it's very important in New York, if you're learning, to find hidden nice places where you will be able to practice daygame without having to make the most perfect front stop or anything like that. Find hidden places where people are a bit more chilled out, are a bit more open to daygame, and that's very important.
Yeah. One more thing is to also make sure that the busyness has to do a lot with the crowding. When Robert talks about busyness, it has to do with a lot of the crowding. And in addition, this has to do with all the other hustlers on the street. The worst place you could ever game is where there are lots of people trying to get people to sign up, where there are lots of homeless people or beggars trying to get money. And in New York, one of the places that's like that is Union Square. Union Square is overgamed. It has so many people trying to get attention of passers-by. It's a nice spot because it has lots of traffic, but yes, if you do want to make life easy for yourself, Union Square may not necessarily always be the best place to go.
Yes, we saw that's the same stuff in some subway stations and in general in different locations on the street. Well, since we started this, let's talk a bit about the importance of looks in New York if you're daygaming, and I think it especially applies if you are not white. I think it's even more important if you're not white here in this city, because you see a lot of people approaching you on the street to ask for something. Mm-hmm. And so because you have loads of experience, and I coached an Indian student here in New York City, and you being black and daygaming, you had your aha moments that you've experimented with in the past that we spoke about on some previous podcast. We did the podcast
in Belgrade, I think.
Yeah, we did we spoke something about being black and daygaming in New York City. So what are your thoughts on this topic?
I think, and I haven't verified this because as far as I know, well, actually I have a friend of mine who's also black too, but I think that looks matter in that there's a lot of the people who are begging on the street are black, and I always used to feel that when I was doing an approach, I was almost always immediately put in the same bucket. So I had to change my style as much as possible to not be considered one of those people, because people in New York are very fast. They're in autopilot, so they'll quickly make snap decisions on who to avoid, where to walk. And as a day game, if you're really trying to stop someone, you want to make sure that they, for a second, give you time to listen to you do the open. Because many times you'll get the kind of blanking, rejection? Not rejection. I don't call it rejection.
Yeah, just like...
It's just that they just literally see you, but then they're like, okay, I'm assuming it's the beggar, and they just keep walking. They're like, I'm busy, I'm on the phone. So I did my best to change my style. I tried to emphasize my accent as much as possible. Might as well. It's very different. And in addition to that, I have to have a lot more assertiveness. I need to be more... I need to stand my ground a bit more and kind of command a kind of presence whereby it's like, no, I expect you to stop. I'm telling you something, you're not just gonna walk away from me, kind of thing. I mean, I'm not assaulting people. I'm just commanding this presence, right? There's this presence that most people who are begging will never have, which is why it's easy to kind of walk away from them, because they're kind of begging and they'll let you go the moment you ignore them. But I try to not be ignored within boundaries, of course, of what's acceptable.
I saw that a lot, and I was working on that a lot with students, because what they noticed in my sets when I did demos was I would open a chick, she would walk around me, she would start walking away, and then she would stop and come back in several cases, because I was there and I was 100% expecting, like, sweetie, we're talking here, like, you're not gonna go anywhere. And she comes back and she gives you attention. And I noticed when other day gamers that I on the first days when I was coaching them, soon they would open and they would expect the blowout, even though they did everything right. Like very small nuances in the way they were stopping girls gave away that they were expecting to get a blowout. It was maybe not being 100% in front of them, maybe not being 100%, how do you say that, squared up with them.
Yes, where you don't square your shoulders.
Yes, and they were maybe the feet were perfectly squared up, but one shoulder was slightly to one side, and she would use that to walk around them. And fixing really small nuances like that helped get more girls to stop. And then when girls still went around them, what students would do, they would turn around and boom, the girl would walk away. I told them, stand your ground. Your feet are on the ground. Even if you shift your shoulders when she walks around you, never move your feet. As soon as they would do that, girls would start stopping more and more and more.
Yeah, there's one more thing that I do. I guess you could, you can analyze it to the way you want. But eye contact is important. So sometimes you may do the stop properly, a student may do the stop properly, but not hold eye contact with the person that's stopping. And there's this weird thing with human beings that if you're not being watched, you're more inclined to do something bad. So people are more likely to ignore you if they don't think you're looking at them. But I usually hold very strong eye contact, just like I see you. And someone, I guess in a way my face also says, I see you, but I'm trying to tell you something. So holding that eye contact while staying planted is like, hey, I'm saying something. And also projecting your voice. Usually if they're still walking, I will actually increase my volume and still do the opener while I'm fixed. And sometimes they will come back. They're like, oh, okay, this is not someone trying to sell me something. Because autopilot is always in there. They're like, someone's trying to sell me something, someone's trying to beg for something. And you have a chance in those little small steps to kind of snap them out of that prejudgment and kind of get them to pay a little attention.
Yeah, we will definitely talk later a bit more about how easy or hard is it to get the girls to stop, how easy it is to run full sets, get numbers, how flaky the girls, and how easy the dates are. So in general, the conclusion is you have to have really strong stops and you have to look good. You can't be stereotypically put in a group, which will happen because New York is really, everyone is going somewhere. It's like, it's busy. It's a city where people know how to not bump into each other in crazy situations. It's like millimeters, like like race cars. But they don't bump into each other. That's what I noticed. And I think what someone who moves to New York might do, they might get pissed off and start bumping into people to get where they want to go. It was it's a really strange thing I noticed. It's like a crazy mechanism, but it's working. But that was really incredible for me. So yes, dress really well. Don't put yourself into any stereotypical groups. If you do, then don't even go out daygaming. There is 0 point in going out daygaming in New York City if you can be even slightly associated with a beggar, with someone trying to get them a girl join your religion or anything like that. Like whatever you do, however good your stop is, it's not gonna work. It's just people in New York won't help you.
Oh my God, they won't.
Yeah, because I was trying to buy a metro card, which is what you need to ride trains and subways here. And as I'm buying it, an Indian guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, is this where you buy a metro card?" And he starts explaining me how he's here to participate in America's Got Talent. I think he's part of the guys who did really well, or like, I don't know, I think they got really good results. I might be wrong, I didn't double check. So anyways, he was participating there, and he just says, "Listen, I have to get to New Jersey, but I can't seem to figure out this machine. I can't seem to figure out how to buy it." So I couldn't figure out either because they wouldn't take my card, and I ended up buying him a ticket, and I was going the same way. So we went together and we had a chat, and he said he walked up to many people before me, and try to figure out, try to get help to get to New Jersey. No one would even talk to him. And me being not a New Yorker, just like, oh yeah, sure, let me finish my thing. And he was like trying to not disturb me too much, because for 5 minutes I was trying to figure it out, and he was almost walking on. I was like, wait, dude, like let me finish, I'll help you, no problem. And yes, so unless your stop is really good, I mean, if you're lost in New York City, you're dead.
That actually, that's actually happened to me before. There are times when I was not even trying to game, I was trying to get some help, and I realized that no one will stop for you. So I started using the same tactics I use in game, which is like literally look someone straight in the eye or kind of step in their way and be like, hey, I'm talking to you, I need to find this place, kind of thing. Funny thing actually happened when you were teaching one of your students. There was an old lady who had been begging, like she'd been trying to get people's attention. They're all just brushing past her. She was trying to find Zara. And I could see from the body language, because I understand, I've now kind of become more attuned to filter out beggars and people actually need genuine help based on their body language. So I just walked straight to her, holding 2 coffees in hand, and she's like, I'm trying to find Zara. And because I know Broadway really well, I'm like, okay, it's over there. But for a long while, she was just standing in the middle of the road trying to get anyone to stop. And just knowing that from the innocent, if someone who is genuinely trying to get help is not getting anyone to stop for them, you as a day gamer really, really need to be on point with everything. You need to have that presence. You need to command that presence, and you need to be somewhat assertive to get them to actually listen to you.
So let's get to a question that many guys will want to know. Where do you day game in New York? And that's the beauty of New York. It's so busy that I think wherever you're staying, you can find a neighborhood, a square or park, or I don't know, a place to day game at. We day gamed in Manhattan, but I think, what are your thoughts? Let's say someone is staying in other parts of New York, not Manhattan. Let's not go into details what exact places they should go to, but how do you think, if they're staying in, let's say, Bronx or Brooklyn or any other neighborhoods, will they find places to day game there?
I've never been as high as the Bronx. No idea about the Bronx.
What's Bronx? Is it bad neighborhood?
No, I don't know. It's just all the way. It's just really far.
Okay.
It's really far. Ideally, you want a game closer to where you live, assuming you can find a place that has traffic. That far north, no idea. Harlem's good. If you live in Harlem, you don't necessarily need to come down the upper east side and west side near Central Park. I think those areas are good if you live that far up. For Brooklyn, Williamsburg's good. There's a place near the Apple Store that has a long street. I've gamed there before. That's a good place.
Okay. But in general, if people are staying, let's shortly touch upon New Jersey, because we have some listeners from New Jersey, and I think you moved like a week ago from Jersey City, from the best spot in Jersey City, right across the bridge. You moved to Manhattan, because Manhattan is just so better for day game. And I had a student who lives in New Jersey, and it's just not good for game.
Yeah. So I didn't like gaming. You've seen my neighborhood, the one that I was at. It's a bit tiny, and I feel that in when you're day gaming, when you're out, I don't want to have a lot of time between my sets. I really like to keep the momentum going because it allows me to stay out of my head, especially if I'm solo, which when I'm solo, it just allows me to kind of keep the momentum and keep the vibe going. Where I was living, there just wasn't that kind of traffic, and there would have been a lot of time wasted. And one more thing is, when I'm out, I kind of like sometimes will time box my sessions to 2 hours. And if I want to get everything done in 2 hours, just having a nice dense area is good enough so that I can do other things in my life. Jersey City, malls are good. I actually met up with the student that you mentioned, and he does malls really well. He doesn't have any fear of doing approaches within closed spaces, unlike most street day gamers. So he has an upper hand with that. But yeah, not ideal.
Okay, and to people who come to New York and who will day game in Manhattan, which is the best place to day game, hands down, in New York.
Yes.
What would be the 3 places you suggest they check out for day game?
So I like Soho. Soho, Broadway, Lafayette. That area has a good enough amount of traffic, and it has a lot of very fashionable ladies walking around.
Very,
yeah.
very beautiful ladies. Tons of
and
aids.
some tourists
Tons
too.
of aids.
Yes.
Seriously.
And some tourists too. Lots of students who go to NYU. So I feel that that's a very rich area, and that's one good spot. I've done Washington Square Park a few times. I don't always do it because I feel like it's sometimes saturated, but
By day gamers or?
by day gamers, or it just gets old because I'm kind of like walking around the same park over and over.
Yeah, it's not a big park. It's a small park.
Yeah, it's a very tiny park, but that's a good spot. It's
is.
on good days you can also just hang out there and kind of, you could possibly do a half a 2 hour, a full 1 hour session over there if you're very active and get some good sets.
Definitely.
Third, I like doing 23rd, along 23rd Street. So I walk along 23rd Street between 6th Avenue and Broadway, and then I make my way down towards Union Square. Union Square, again, super saturated. If you're a beginner, I guess it's your choice to go there, but
Beginners should go to the most cliche day game spots because there are reasons why they are most cliche day game spots. They are in some ways the best. That's why everyone goes there. The smarter day gamers probably don't go there because
yeah,
but every beginner day games this, and it's good. They should do it. I take my coaching students sometimes to the most cliche day game spots. They are good for a reason. They're cliche for a reason.
yeah. And I guess this is going to eventually, we're going to talk about this later, which comes to do with vibe. There's certain places you don't want to go to, or if you're like a very green beginner, may not necessarily be that ideal, specifically in New York City. We'll touch on that shortly, but yeah, Union Square isn't bad. When I first moved to Manhattan, I literally was there. I lived close by and I was there almost every day. I was very dedicated, rain or snow. Yeah, those were fun times when I first moved here.
It was like when we first met and you were surprised how me and Batman were in the streets.
Yeah,
regardless what time of the day it is, what day of the week it is, it's just those guys just start day gaming.
Yeah, it was only when I saw you guys how dedicated and how much you were gaming that I was like, man, you guys are either crazy or I'm not doing this to the level that I should be.
Yeah, well now you're crazy as well, so welcome to the club. Okay, so Soho, Washington Square Park and Union Park, right?
Union Square.
Union Square, yes. Okay, well, let's talk about the toughness of day game or easiness of day game here in different parts of interaction. We'll go over opening, running sets and getting numbers. We'll go over flaking or flakiness and how easy it is to get from a date to lay. Important thing to understand, when I did this trip, it was not planned. I had bought tickets to Morocco to go lay on a beach, learn surfing and drink beer. That's all I wanted to do because it was cold in Europe. I wanted to escape cold, and I got a student from Toronto. And as soon as I got a student from Toronto, I announced my trip that I'm going to North America, to several cities in US, and I was booked non-stop. Like I barely had any days off from coaching, which means by this time my love towards day game is being questioned. I'm kind of at day game, but I still I love this time, but I've been on the streets countless hours. Mr. T spent 2 days in a row shadowing me while I was coaching a student, and he was even after the first day he was bitching like a little girl about how his calves and feet hurt. So I've been doing this for 1.5 months non-stop. So why am I telling this? On this trip I made the decision that I'm not here to day game, I'm here to coach. So my experience in day game was 90% coaching students and seeing what works for them, and I only did enough sets as much as I needed to do as demos. So take that into consideration. I will share my experience from opening and running good sets. So, and Mr. T will talk about flakiness and getting from dates to lays, especially about New York, because New York was where I spent the least amount of time. I spent more time in Toronto, coached several students there, coached several students in Chicago. But in New York, I coached only one real student. The rest were one-day students, and that's to fix small things. I don't normally do that. So Mr. T will definitely be chipping in more than I when it comes to flakiness and getting from dates to lays. Okay, well, opening. How hard is it to get a girl to stop in New York City? I don't want to ask you this question. I want to answer this myself, and there is a reason. So, when I learned day game, I put myself out there, and I started with really strong front stops. I'd never started with weak stops. I transitioned to weak stops. Weak because for a beginner, the stops that I do now, everyone who has seen who I daygame, they would be like, what the fuck, no one would stop with the stops.
Lazy stops, yeah.
They are lazy stops from the side, from the back, like really dumb shit. But it works, because once you have the frame and a really good vibe, they stop. Not in New York City, but they stop.
New York, yeah.
Not in New York City, yeah. Even here, I got some stops like that. I tried, and at first it didn't work, but then it started working. So when guys learn day game in cities that are easy for day game, and they think they understand day game, and then they start traveling, and then they go to Russia, and everyone's bitching about how Russia is so hard to day game, or they go to New York and they're bitching about how New York is so hard to day game. They just are used to places where it's easy to day game, where you can make all the mistakes on the set and girls still will stay, give her number, come on a date and sleep with you. There are places like that, kinda. Not really, but kinda. So when they come to New York, it's not that New York is that much harder, it kinda is, but it's that their skills are subpar. Their stops are shit, they've learned shit stops. And I know, so for me, when I come to New York, I know, well, I just have to do the stops I used to do and it will work, and they do work, it's amazing. But when I go to other cities, I just like, I know I can just lightly tap on the shoulder. It's like, hey, sorry. And she'll stop and she'll be there with the Bambi eyes. And I remember when each time you go to Europe, you go back to New York and you're always like, oh damn, Europe fucked up my day game.
Yeah, it's because you don't want to do strong stops in Europe. You don't want to do strong stops because you're just a crazy person. It's so much overkill. The girls will stop so long as you have even the minute amount of frame to just stop them. Like just stand, face them, and look them in the eye.
Not in Belgrade.
Belgrade, unlike everyone else who was on that trip, I had no problem stopping people, right? I can say Belgrade, yes, for me stopping people was easier because technically I'm kind of exotic. The power in my stops, I feel, was on par with what would have gotten the girls to stop. In New York, I think sometimes those similar stops, like me just walking straight in front of someone who's walking in my direction, like some girl yesterday ran away. Like, remember, I tried to do that and the girl literally freaked out and ran away. Whereas
she didn't run, but she ejected she freaked out, yes.
Whereas in Belgrade, that would have should have just stayed planted.
Yes.
Right. So that level of assertiveness, I guess, it works pretty well for me. So I wouldn't complain about Belgrade. Planning on going back there.
Let's send all the day gamers to Belgrade. Because Tom in his latest podcast said that Tirana is an amazing place for day game. I really think he was fucking joking.
That must be a lie.
So guys, if you want a really easy day game spot, go to Belgrade, Serbia.
Yeah, you become vegan.
You'll.
That's an inside joke, but
That's an inside joke, yeah. Uh, okay, so let's get down to the topic. Opening in New York City. If your open is good,
if your open is good, you then have to stack well. Or actually, the stop would be good because then you have to then work through the whole process, and you do have to get the girls to forget slightly where they were going. Yeah, I don't know. What's your take?
I will get to my take. So you know the local daygamers, and you saw how detailed I was about front stops and how I made students pay attention to incredibly small details. And once they did, magic happened.
Yep.
So what I want to know from your experiences, you are the local daygamer and you know other local daygamers. What percentage of local daygamers that you know have really good enough, strong enough front stops for this city?
Ooh.
Given that you've seen what actually works and yeah.
Man, like front stops?
Like
We're talking about just front stops.
We're talking just front stops good enough for this city, for Broadway or Prince.
I've not gone out with anyone that had a good enough front stop.
So no one.
Nope.
Okay.
I've been winging with a lot of people. No, even I'd given up fronts. I'd not given up. I'd kind of switched to doing side stops, so like lazy stops. But then at some point I realized that I was just not stopping them anymore. So I started going back to front stopping just so that I can hold more sets. But yeah, of all the people I've winged with, if I'd met someone that did proper great front stops, that would be like a wing I'd be out with all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So my take on this is, if you want really to succeed or have an opportunity to succeed, because we're just talking about the first step of the interaction, just to stop, you will have to be 100% in front of them, 100%. You will have to be 100% squared up with them, shoulders straight,
Yes.
not turn, not anything like that. You will have to speak loud, low. You will have to speak slow. If you speak fast, they will run away.
Yes.
They will just, the speed of the voice I was teaching, it's so hardcore. I did demos here or to demonstrate how important the way you speak is. I did demos and I started doing this recently in Chicago, I think. I did demos, in Prague, when I coached Salty. So what I did was I would stop girls without saying a single word, and once they are 100% stopped and we get the eye contact, I would start talking and say, "Hi, sorry, I know this is very random, da 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 da." So here your stop has to be really, really strong. If you do everything right, some of them will stop. Will most of them stop? No. Oh,
No.
actually, yeah, most of them. Like yesterday.
They will kind of try to listen to you for a second.
Yeah.
They'll pause. You know that you did a good stop if they're kind of at least pausing to hear you out.
Yeah, and then you have to work. Then you get to running your sets. Or here it was, you have to stack really well. You have to have a good stack, and it cannot be like, oh, you must be a New Yorker. Well, in New York, the secret about New York, almost no one here is a New Yorker, but they all want to think they are New Yorkers because they've been living here for 10 years. So you have to have a good stack with like, oh, you actually don't look like a New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, oh, I actually am, but I'm originally from, we saw a lot of girls from Cali, from, I don't know, like all around the place. So you have to have really good stacks. Once you get a topic, you have to be able to use Launchpad really, really good. When I think about Cali, I think about three things: A, B, and C. C is a tease, and ideally you add, I can already imagine you in A doing B while C. You paint a picture. If you do that perfectly, you're in. If you do the beginning of a set perfectly, the opening, the stacking, and use Launchpad perfectly, you are in. Some of them will stay, like, I don't know, 30% maybe will stay, and then you can start having a conversation, running your set. So this is what I noticed. This beginning has to be very, very technical. And as one student told me, he said, well, I thought London day game model is approximately how the set should look like. And after the coaching session, he said, okay, I learned that it is exactly how the set should look like words, phrasing, speed, stop, every tiny detail has to be on spot. Is it saying
on point?
On point, yeah, on point, to make it work here. And if you do that, they will stop and you will get the numbers, because if they stop, very often you will get the numbers. That was my experience with students. With girls that would stay and have a chat, if the students were closing strong, they would get the numbers.
Yeah.
If you close weak,
they will be like, they'll just leave. The same way if you have a not strong stop, they find a way out, and if you have a not strong close, they find a way out.
And they all have boyfriends or seeing someone, or New York is what, like way more women than guys.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who once, when a girl told him, hey, I have a boyfriend, he's like, what? In New York, I've heard that's basically being single. And he got the date and he got the lay.
Yeah, I've heard so many strange things, guys. Lately on the chat, we've had so many strange things guys say when girls have boyfriends. It's kind of funny.
How long have you had that problem for?
Yeah, but like
that one's great.
I have mixed feelings about it. I love and hate it. It's not something I would use, but I saw students use it and it worked. So
yeah.
Well, I guess it's okay.
It will make them laugh. I mean, I used it the other evening and the girl paused for a second, but of course everything else about the set was shit. So it didn't really. It's like, you know, like you have a little bounce and then like, you know, it's dead nonetheless.
Yeah. So in general, if you open good, if you stack good, if you can storytell or at least use launchpad and tease. By the way, yes, very big thing for Americans. It was when we met. You were one of my first students. You were, I think, my first international student. And your big thing was you could stop, you could run sets, but you were having a nice guy small talk. And all we did was we focused on teasing.
Yeah. The sets, to be honest, I look back and I know that how I was running the sets because there was really no sexual tension in that. Yes. And that's really what I needed to add. Yes. Because without that, it was just a friendly conversation.
Yeah, and it's the same in US. Almost every student I've coached from US, maybe even every student I coach from US, has a very big challenge teasing. It's really hard for them to learn teasing, and I understood why, because upbringing here teaches you to be polite, to not be in anyone else's space, to be considerate, etc., etc. So people are raised to be very nice. So it's very hard for them to then learn teasing and tease chicks that whatever, with drugs or drinking or partying or anything. And there are places like in Chicago and Toronto, I learned you kind of have to calibrate your teasing because people there are very PC and you can't tease that hard. Whereas in New York is a crazy city where anything goes, and here again you can tease pretty hardcore, and you have to tease here to run good sets. Yeah, okay, let's get to the next topic. How flaky are the numbers in New York, or how likely it is to get a date once you get a number? And here is where I want your input, Mr. T.
I feel like that really depends, honestly, on how well you run your sets. I don't find it that hard getting numbers. Like, I feel like my number close ratio is 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 4 in a terrible day. But of those that respond, oh man, let's see. So I think I would say maybe 40% ping back rate.
I'm really interested in conversion from number to date, and I suppose you don't keep detailed stats on this, but
not as much.
If you had to guess, like what's from getting a number to getting a date? What's
So
the
if
ratio?
if I had 8 numbers, I think I could get 1 date, maybe 2.
From how many numbers?
8.
From 8. That's good. No, my open to date was 1 out of 5. Number to date. Like I would get 1 date for every 5 numbers I got on average.
5 numbers. Yeah, I think that's also about right.
So
Yeah.
if your game is decent, it's pretty much similar to other places.
So 10, and this also assumes that you are not in the downward spiral of game. Like when you're out in a session, you have like those terrible ones. Like on average, I think you could do 1 in 5.
Like a daygamer who kind of knows what he's doing and is not dumb, but is like experienced daygamer.
Yeah.
Well, we shouldn't call any daygamers dumb, but no, like there are guys who do strange indirect game and really weird things. And
though an extra thing is a lot of my dates do end up in LA. So even if I may have like a 1 in 10 to date, usually I will convert that date. It's very rare that I do a date that doesn't convert. Usually it ends at the pinging. Somewhere in the texting it will just die.
So they make a decision to sleep with you before coming out?
I imagine.
So do you know approximately what's your date to lay ratio?
I have not looked at those stats.
Mine is like 50%.
Date to lay ratio.
Yeah, so you have like 10 dates. How many lays do you have? You get out of
or
that?
10 dates?
Like 10 first dates.
10 first dates?
Yeah. So how many lays?
I probably get 5 lays.
Okay, yeah. It's the same as mine.
Get 5
it's
lays.
the same as mine. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So New York on numbers doesn't seem that much harder if you are good day gamer. But now we're getting to a point where we have to talk about how good is New York for learning day game. And I have to say it's what?
I was miming very good.
It's very, very tough.
It's tough, but listen, we've been to the extremes. Belgrade, harder stops. You have to, like, even the texting is painful. You have to do multiple dates, right? That takes a while. I feel that's like an extreme where you need to have your everything on point, and even after you've gotten your set run, the whole dating process is its own mess. I have done London, which is almost like New York in terms of how you need to have strong stops. But yeah, I feel like a nice balance between difficulty and the nice balance of difficulty would be kind of New York, London. Places like Prague, Budapest, those are like, I feel more on the easy side. And for a beginner, you don't want to go too easy. We know what happens when you go too easy. You end up having shitty stops. You're not properly set up for.
Remind me this question. That's a good question. I've thought about this because I've coached now in New York, and I've coached guys from New York in Europe.
Yes.
So I've seen what happens when you learn here, and I've seen what happens when you come from here, learn in Europe, and then come back. Interesting. I have some interesting thoughts on that. Okay, so about learning day game in New York City, what I noticed, the hardest thing is it's hard to get positive reference experience. It's hard to get, oh, she stopped. Nice. It's hard when you're learning. It's like when you're learning, you're technically pretty bad.
Especially without a coach.
Yeah.
If you're doing it solo, yes.
Yeah. So you're going out and you're not getting positive reference experiences. You're going, oh, she stopped. Instead, you're getting like a blowout. It's like nothing. She doesn't stop, doesn't talk to you, walks off. Anything. Like you're just getting bad experiences, which affects your vibe, which fucks up your vibe. And you might, if you have a bad vibe, and vibe is inexplainable thing, it's a thing you cannot teach. It's just something that students get after a few days. They just like go out, boom. All of a sudden they do shitty stops, they do worse stacking, but girls love it, it's amazing. So technically they're getting worse, but the results are getting much better. So here it's hard to do that because you have so many negative experiences, you get so many blowouts. So it's harder to get positive reference experience. And if you are making mistakes in your sets, your results will show it very, very fast. Unless your front stop is on point, it's not gonna work. And those mistakes are gonna fuck with your vibe. And so the thing is, guys don't know the mistakes they are making. For example, I coached several day gamers in New York City, and guys who have been going out, guys who sometimes, like one guy, when preparing for the coaching, got his first day game lay, I think. I think it was his first day game lay, I'm not really sure. What all of them told was how they didn't know the small things they were doing wrong in their opens, in their stacking. They say, well, I would stack, and they wouldn't stay. They did everything the same. They improved their stacking a little bit. All of a sudden, girls are staying. So guys don't know what they are doing wrong. So it's hard to get a positive reference experience. It's hard to, and it fucks with your vibe. And as soon as you learn to front stop pretty strong, stack good, and you can use the launch pad, you can start running good sets. But again, it's hard to get there because of the mistakes you're making early in the sets. And we have this kind of like closed loop thing where to get good results, you must have good vibe. To have good vibe, you must correct your mistakes. To correct your mistakes, you must know what exactly you're doing wrong. And it's like all these things combined
they
make
build
it,
on each other.
And it makes it really hard to learn day game in New York City, because I think the city itself, you have to love the city. This is a tough city. It's too loud for me, it's too crazy for me. I couldn't live here. My beer and in general substance abuse in this city is just, or not abuse or use, in this city is like nowhere else. And that to me says, okay, this isn't the city for me. This is like the state it puts me in. So if you love the city, you have better chance to actually get any results in day game in that city. And on the point of if you are living in New York City, should you learn in New York or somewhere else in an easier city? So I've done both versions. And so what happens if you learn in an easier city? In an easier city, you can have a weaker stop and girls will still stop. You can have a little bit weaker stacking and they'll stay, a little bit weaker storytelling, and you can still succeed. So you get to practice all parts of the set, the open, the stack, the vibing, making her invest, making her qualify, closing strong, etc. So you get most likely to practice all parts of the set. Whereas if it's really hard to stop girls, you are less likely to get opportunity to work on parts of the set that are further down the line. But I don't know. I've seen similar results in both options, so I don't actually think it matters for New York. Because in New York, if we spend the first day on learning the front stop and they learn the front stop, it's okay.
Yeah, well, as again, New York is diverse. You could try doing day game in less busy parts. There's a chance that you will actually have less blowouts and probably more likelihood that you can go through the steps. To your credit, I understand why now you could say that it may not be good for a beginner day gamer, or it would take longer for someone who's literally getting into day game, because you need to actually have reference of the entire model to know how to actually use it and to know where you do good and where you do bad to make improvements. Yes. So if you can't get that far, you're kind of stuck in first gear. Yeah. Well, LA is a nice place.
What?
I think LA would be a good place to go do. Yeah, it's super chill. If there's a nice balance, yeah, you could go to LA or San Diego, do your coaching there, to get
No,
the
like
process?
not even coaching. Like to learn, like there is a difference between learning on your own and learning with a coach.
True.
I think if you learn with a coach, from my experience so far, if you are in New York, well, if you want to go to Europe to check out Europe, sure, go to Europe. If not, do it in New York. New York is an amazing city for coaching. I loved it for coaching. It's incredible. It's just amazing. So if someone is learning with a coach, do whatever the fuck you want. Okay, no, strike that. If you are learning with me as a coach, I can only talk about myself because I've heard stories about USA and coaches, and let's just say those stories haven't been the best ones. So I can only talk about my experience as a coach with my students. So if you're learning with me, you can do it in New York, you can do it in Europe. If you are doing it when the weather is good in New York, yes, New York is good. If you're doing it when it's winter in New York, don't do it in New York. It will be very hard to stop anyone when it's cold outside and when they are in a rush. So that way, in that case, definitely don't do it in New York. But if you're learning it on your own, I think New York will be a very hard place to learn it because you will just have a long starting period with a lot of shit vibe that might affect not only your day game but your vibe in life in general. So it's a tough city to learn on your own.
Yeah, you'd probably have to get some thick skin. If there's anything, there are people who live in New York, they'll probably never be able to leave and go somewhere else, and they want to be day gamers. All we can do is allow you to set expectations and know that, hey, if you go and do your approaches and people are not stopping for you or they brush you off, that happens to me all the time, right? But you just have a bit more of an uphill battle. It can be done though. It's just gonna take a while longer, depending on the person. Different people learn different rates, but yeah, average person is gonna take a while longer.
So I really like your point because I forgot to talk about that. It's very, very important. You have to be completely fine with being blown out all the time.
Oh yeah, stings very hard.
And if you can't take it, then this isn't the city to learn on your own. If you can take it and still improve and go out and keep having positive vibes and keep going out on your own or with really good wings that are better than you, because don't go out with other wings that can do the stops and are just walking around with more than one wing at a time. Never do that. But if you can take your blowouts and still feel good about it, still feel amazing, still be a happy person, then this is an amazing city. My final thoughts on New York for day game is the hotness here is unreal. You have so many really hot chicks here, whatever you like, tall, short, like big asses, small asses, big tits, small tits, anything, any race you like whatever your thing is, it's here, and the volume is amazing. The number of people on the street is just unbelievable. If you are an experienced day gamer, or if you want to learn day game here with me, this is an amazing city. If you are a beginner day gamer who wants to find good day game travel destinations, don't come to New York. What are your final thoughts or final words about day game in New York to guys that are listening?
Come to New York, do the day game, but know that, enjoy the experience, accept it for what it is. You just have to accept it for what it is, and whatever happens, if it's not great, completely forget about it, immediately forget about it, and just go do your next set. It took me a while to learn this, to adopt this habit, but even when I have the worst set, really pissed off because someone just completely ignored my existence as a human being, I have to wash it off immediately because there's just so many more girls out there. There's someone out there who will stop you. Your vibe will get better. You'll just do much better if you just completely accept the experience for what it is and just go through the process. Don't worry about it.
And if you decide to go out or New York, start going out, or if you want to come to New York, then we have a bunch of guys from New York in chat. We had a meetup here, but met a bunch of amazing guys. Like, I got to have chat with some of them, and they seemed like really interesting guys who do go out, who do take
very dedicated
action. So definitely ask around in the chat who's from New York. Make sure to tell a bit about yourself, because when you join the chat and you don't tell anything about yourself and you just start asking questions about game or giving advice when no one knows who you are, well, no one. If you don't introduce yourself, people aren't gonna go out with you. So when you join, tell your story, share what's your experience, what you're looking for, and build great connections with guys. So come to New York, see it for yourself, and let us know in the chat how you liked and what was your experience here. And now I will get ready to do my final stuff here, pack my bag, and slowly head back to the lovely city of Prague for 2 more students before I go on my day game vacation to Malta and Morocco to just lay on the beach, learn surfing, and enjoy my days. Most likely, so to those who listen to this podcast, you know that me and Mr. T, we're going on a secret adventure. I think we're doing it in May-ish. So I'll probably have a few more free weeks before that. So if you want to go to Prague, which I'm kind of gotten bored by, and I don't know whether I'll go back to Prague this summer. If you want to do some day game coaching in Prague, hit me up as soon as possible. I will be probably available there mid-April or something like that. Or you can join me and Mr. T on our secret day game journey if you want to get coached in a great day game city in Europe that Mr. T has been to, but I have never been there, but I'm eager to go there and explore it. So if you want to know more, apart from which city is going to be, because you will only find it out after you've signed up for coaching. It will be a secret. I don't want people to go there. Just shoot me an email, and as you know, there is an open trip coming up where anyone can join, which is to Mother Russia end of May. So that's it, guys. Go out and do some fucking sets. Bye.
Ciao.